Call the meeting to order. This is the November 10, 2015 meeting of the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. First thing I'd just like to do is say a few words to thank our outgoing members. Commissioner Calabrese, who's unfortunately not here tonight, he's been elected to the Board of Education, so we wished him best of luck on that. Pat Jacobson, thank you for your many years of service. How many years has it been?
6.
6 years. So, thank you very much. Meg Francis, who couldn't be here with us tonight either. She was promoted from alternate to a full member serving a 4-year term, so wish her congratulations. And Commissioner Noonan, congratulations on your election to another term.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to you as well.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
Thanks very much. So on our agenda tonight, just some couple of notes. 54 Sasco Hill Road, under old business, items D and E. That application has been withdrawn, so that'll be removed from the agenda. And also 1851 North Benson Road, public hearing, item C2. That application has been withdrawn as well. So the first item on our agenda are the meeting minutes from October 27, 2015. Everybody have a copy of that?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Alessi,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jacobson. So in light of the absences, then we have both of our alternates are on.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Very good. So we have any discussion on the minutes, corrections, changes? Do we have any questions? Ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are adopted unanimously. Next item is 356 Black Rock Turnpike. It's a request of Rajat Gupta for a 50% release of a $33,455 bond pertaining to special exception improvements in the design commercial district.
Mr. Chairman, this is the conversion of what was, for many years, the Fairfield Lighting store to a daycare facility called Bright Beginnings. They have done well over 50% of the bonded improvements, and you have a report or an email in your packet from engineering recommending 50% release.
Thank you. Anybody, can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the bond release.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Barrett, second by Commissioner Corcoran. Anybody have any questions on that? Appears to be all buttoned up. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The item carries unanimously. Next item is new applications to recommend a public hearing. 3335 Beaumont Street, special permit application of Beachside Estates LLC pertaining to the construction of a mixed-use commercial and residential building in the design commercial district.
This is proposed new construction. It is a new building. It does require a public hearing.
Okay.
Make a motion to move to public hearing.
Motion to move to public hearing by Commissioner Alessi, seconded by Commissioner Noonan. Any comments, discussion is required by regulations. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Next item is old business, 753 Tungus Hill Road, request of attorney Charles Jankowski for 100% release of a $5,137.50 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in a B zone.
Mr. Chairman, at our last meeting, we held a public hearing to review this request for bond release. As mentioned at the hearing, the TPZ approved this 2-lot subdivision on January 22nd, 2002. The bonded improvements includes drainage, curbs, and ramps for the driveways and site stabilization. You have a report from our engineering department that confirms that all the work has been completed to their satisfaction, and they recommend 100% release.
Very good. Thank you. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion to release the bond.
Motion to release by Commissioner Alessi, second by Commissioner Corcoran. Anybody have any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Bond release is approved unanimously. Next is 165 Butternut Lane, request of Walter Stapleton for 100% release of a $122,950 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in a AA zone.
Again, similarly to what you just heard, we had a hearing to review the request for release. The TPZ approved this two-lot re-subdivision on January 9th, 2007. The bonded improvements included drainage, a catch basin, a ramp, and site stabilization. Again, you have a report from the engineering department that confirms the work has been completed to their satisfaction, and they recommend 100% release.
Thank you. Motion? Motion by Commissioner Corcoran.
I move to release the bond.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Alessi.
Works all good?
Yep.
All done. Any questions, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Bond release is approved unanimously. Next is 411 Bronson Road, request of Paul Richter for 100% release of a $22,950 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in an A zone.
And finally, we had another request for a subdivision bond release. We held a hearing. The TPZ Commission approved this January 22nd, 2013. Again, it was a two-lot re-subdivision. The bonded improvements included drainage, curb, sidewalk, street trees, and site stabilization. Again, you have a report from the engineering department confirming that all the work has been completed to their satisfaction, and they recommend 100% release.
Thank you.
Make a motion to release the bond.
Motion to release by Commissioner Alessi, second by Commissioner Noonan. They're draining our bank accounts here.
Yeah, that's true. Losing all that interest.
Any comments, questions? No? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The release is approved unanimously. Next item is public hearing. First is 60 Rygate Road, re-subdivision application of Love Where You Live LLC for 2 lots in an A zone. Thank you. Attorney Rizzio.
Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Raymond Rizzio, in office at 1 Post Road, Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm happy to be before you tonight representing Love Where You Live Homes for what I would tell is a pretty simple 2-lot subdivision. This is a property that was owned by a Neberdowski family back in the 30s and 40s. They sold the property around them to a people named Kazikas who developed this property, which is the Rygate Terrace off of Duck Farm Road, Almond Road. And what they ended up doing is reserving their own homestead here. Then back in 57, as you can see, it's the largest lot, twice the size of any lot that's there. This was the lot specifically after the 50s. They retained this property, they sold it to the seller, the owner, current owner, back in 1957. She has lived there since 57, is contracted to sell the property to our client. The property is conforming in every way. It will be a simple lot split. Both the lots will exceed 10,000 square feet. Both the lots have over a 75-foot square and meet each and every one of the regulations. If you want to look at, even though uniformity and conformity, just look at the assessor's map for the area, you can see it's by far the largest piece in the area, and then you can see the way that the piece was reserved. A simple lot split line down the middle will result in 2 lots. There'll be no roadways built. There'll be no additional services or any kind of improvements that would be undertaken by the town. Basically, we'll just have another driveway that would go on to Rygate Terrace. There's no problems with sight lines. The street is straight run, basically out to Duck Farm Road. The 2 driveways, as you can see, are well spaced, cause no traffic, no problems, and everything is 100% conforming. Laura Pulley did an initial review, which resulted in some changes to the map, which have been submitted and re-reviewed by Laura Pulley, and we got a letter from her dated November 9th, which I hope is in your file, which basically stated, except for a couple typos on the map, we appear to satisfy all of her concerns. In this instance, all of you have been on the board for a while, but you act in your administrative capacity versus a discretionary capacity, since it's a simple two-lot subdivision, and it satisfies all the regulation, no road improvements, no public improvements, and it meets and satisfies all the zoning requirements for the zone that it's located. And that's it. This is about as straightforward an application, I think, as you'll get. But for the the late recording of the map, we were hoping this was something that could have been a free cut, but since it was cut, it didn't satisfy that regulation, that standard. We end up being back before you with probably one of the simpler applications you'll see.
Excellent. So I don't have a November 9th,
November 5th letter.
November 5th. I have October 16th
If you'd like,
email.
hold on. Jim, Mr. Wendt, you have a copy of that? I can submit it to Chairman if you'd like to read it, or I can read it to the record, but there's a letter dated November 5th from Laura Pulley to Jim Wendt. Oh, I'm sorry, dated October 16th. I'm sorry, I apologize. They had the October 16th? Yes, there was an October 9th and then an October 16th. I apologize. And the October 16th letter, my fault.
Email.
Well, the October 16th letter basically calls for two small revisions to the map, which we'd be happy to make a condition of approval, which deal with typographical errors
Right.
and just placement of certain dimensions in a certain location on the map,
Right.
but nothing substantive.
Yeah.
Also, all our substantive issues have been addressed.
I would agree that the comments are just minor corrections to the site plan, and we can make those conditions of approval. Does anyone have any questions? The sight lines, it doesn't appear that they'll pose any issues, but do you have the calculations?
I think Neil put my map or I don't have it yet. Although I don't believe it's
Sorry.
an issue at all, since there's no roadway being constructed. Basically, that it shows where the driveway can go, but it doesn't change, I don't think it makes a difference to the lot. It's a flat road, it's a straight out farm road. I don't believe there's any issue at all.
Right, I'm not suggesting that there is. We just require the calculations be a part of the file.
If you give me 1 second, I'll just make sure. Those are all the drainage computations. I don't see them on Neil's map. And I don't certainly...
See it either.
The site distance has got to be, all the way out to the street. There's got to be at least 200 feet in each, 300 feet in each direction.
Yeah.
There's not a turn, it's just flat, it's all developed, there's no impact at all, and it's not a new road, it's just literally two driveways. Actually, one additional driveway.
Right, there are changes to the cuts. You're adding a driveway, and we need to see the sight lines to make sure that there are no issues. I'm not suggesting that there would be, but we do need that for our file. Did you see him anywhere?
No. Patrick, I think,
Don't play, man.
Okay. 1 minute. What is that?
It
Can be-
doesn't appear to be marked on the map, Mr. Chairman, but it was not an issue raised by the engineering department. We can certainly confirm
Yeah.
that they're satisfied with the site.
Right. I think that's the way to handle it.
I mean, the commission would, one of the things that's interesting about this, and it's more of a practical effect than anything else. I know you don't have a meeting until December 15th. We have a woman who's late in her 80s that would like to have this effectuated, and if the commission anyway could vote on this tonight, make that a condition of approval. I mean, I think it's about as straightforward an application, and we'd agree to we'd agree that no subdivision map would be recorded until such time as sightlines were approved by the town engineer. I think that's about as, I think it's pretty much going to be incontrovertible that there's going to be an issue.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not suggesting that they're,
We would agree to, as a condition of approval, we're happy to do that, and we can have them submitted prior to the recording of any subdivision map.
right.
We'll take the risk that I'd have to somehow come back, but I don't envision that being an issue at
No,
all.
I wouldn't think that you'd have to come back, but certainly it'd be something that we'd want to make a condition of approval. Did you have a question or something?
No, I had a comment, but it was more for the applicant. Just sightlines, we had some applications that had issues with them.
Correct.
Because of what needed to be provided. It's not just as a matter of course, applicants for any subdivision,
Correct.
even 2 lots on a street that's not a main road, just provide them, and our regulations just say that as approved by the town engineer. So basically, we're not engineers, so if Laura Pooley says it's okay, it's not. If she says it's insufficient distance, one thing, we use that. So that's kind of, I believe what the chairman's going to, it's just kind of become more of a standard for us to receive them and have her evaluate them. I will say, there's nothing in her comments that said that whatever she saw indicated an issue, but that's where this is
Could
coming from.
could we agree to, as a condition of approval, confirmation
Yes.
by the town engineer that the sightlines are acceptable prior to the recording of any map?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm not taking a position on it one way or the other, but
Right.
I think that that's the answer.
Thank you.
Okay? And we'll take your request under advisement for, action. It's not something that we do.
I understand. I'm just a woman that's lived there since '57, and she's ready to get out of here before the snow starts dropping.
Yeah.
So that's my pressure tonight.
Yeah, okay, very good. Does anyone else have any other questions? No? Okay.
I'm not suggesting that would create any legal precedent. I want to-
All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard on this item? Going once, going twice? Nope? Okay. I'll close the public hearing on this item. That was loud. Next item is 400 Mill Plain Road, special exception application of BSL Fairfield Development LLC pertaining to the construction of an assisted living facility.
Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, my name is Bill Fitzpatrick. I'm an attorney in Fairfield with the law firm of Fitzpatrick, Frey & Bologna. We have offices at 1735 Post Road. I'm here tonight representing BSL Fairfield Development LLC, the contract ground lessee of property at 400 Mill Plain Road, to the rear, that's the east, of the Carrollton Chronic Convalescent Hospital. The property, which is owned by CMF Realty LLC, contains 12.24 acres and is located in the Residence A zone. This property is bounded on the north by Sturgis Park, on the east by Board of Education property, on the south by I-95, and on the west by Mill Plain Road and Mill Plain Green across the street. The present property owner, CMF Realty LLC, consists of members of the Tortora family, a long-standing Fairfield family of note. The Tortora family has owned this property for over 50 years. The Tortora family operates the Carrollton Chronic Convalescent Hospital, which has a skilled nursing component, a physical therapy, occupational therapy component, as well as a long-term care component. Carrollton does not provide assisted living. BSL Development LLC is a subset of Benchmark Senior Living. Benchmark Senior Living was founded in 1997. It's the leading provider of assisted living in New England. Its business model is not only to construct assisted living facilities, but to retain ownership and operation of all its properties. As you will hear from Mr. William Cook, who is here on behalf of Benchmark, Benchmark has a substantial presence in Connecticut including facilities in Stamford, Shelton, Trumbull, Milford, and Ridgefield. The intent of Benchmark Senior Living on this site is to construct an 88-unit assisted living facility of approximately 85,000 square feet. There are currently no assisted living facilities in Fairfield, and there's a demonstrated need, as you will hear, to provide a place that allows Fairfield residents in need of additional assistance to stay in their hometown. There is an existing building on the premises which has fallen into disrepair and which will be raised. The proposed building will be 3 levels with underground parking for 50 vehicles and 18 additional on-grade parking spaces, which is in excess of the number required for the proposed use under the zoning regulations. The property will have a direct access from the High School Access Road, as well as access from Mill Plain Road through the Carrollton buildings there. The proposal is 68 traditional assisted living units and a 20-unit memory care wing. The building includes a wide range of amenities and will be staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Assisted living is a permitted use in the Residence A zone by special exception approval, and I will address the specific regulatory requirements in my closing remarks. The presentation the Commission will hear tonight will include Bill Cook, the Director of Development for Benchmark Senior Living, Walter Jobst, a professional engineer and land surveyor from the Huntington Company, Gerard Frank, a principal of the architectural firm of Bechtel, Frank and Erickson Architects. The Commission will then hear from Bill Kenny, a professional wetland scientist and landscape architect with offices in Fairfield, Michael Galante of Frederick P. Clark Associates, and Christopher Yetman, a development coordinator for Benchmark, who will provide relevant demographic analysis. At that point, I will then conclude. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to start by introducing Mr. Bill Cook, the Director of Development for Benchmark Senior Living.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Commission. Thank you very much for having us here tonight. Just to start, we actually have a PowerPoint presentation we have set up. It's focused on the screen, so I don't know if it's a common practice for you to relocate so you can see that, but maybe if we could, I hate to make you move, but.
Want the lights? Lights?
Common practice to bring popcorn when we have a slideshow. Just so you know, for next time.
That's a very good point. We'll take that into consideration. So, of course, now we have to wait for our lamp to come up to temperature on this. Thank you for your vision. As Attorney Fitzpatrick had gone through on the introduction, my name is Bill Cook. I'm a Development Director with Benchmark Senior Living. Been with Benchmark for 8 years now. I actually live, our company is based in Wellesley, Massachusetts. However, I actually live in Oxford, down here in Connecticut. My wife is originally from the Trumbull area, and all my in-laws still live there. So we are also in the local area, so to speak, a little bit personally. And just kind of reiterate a little bit of the major project points that Attorney Fitzpatrick already went through, is we are looking at a 3-story assisted living and memory care community, approximately 85,000 square feet of space. Again, 88 units, and that's how we define them. We do have a mix of 1-bedroom studio and 2-bedroom units, also some shared units, which is why we have a higher resident count than an actual unit count. We do sometimes have a shared unit that could be shared by 2 people that may be related, sometimes not necessarily husband and wife, could be a brother and a sister, cousins, something along that line. Or sometimes we do find that when people move in, they do actually make friends, and they find it, you know, they'd be more comfortable living with someone else. We have 68 parking spaces on the site, 18 exterior, and we do have 50 in an underground parking garage, which I think is, you know, it's good from 2 points of view. A, it, you know, limits the above-ground parking, and B, our staff and employees, it's better from a safety perspective and just any number of items. Our building, should I hold up for a second? Or?
You have to sit in the audience.
Do you need to move it, to pull a chair up front or something?
Just got elected.
Oh,
Right. I know, he just got elected, but he's not sworn in, so he can't sit up there.
Oh, no problem.
Apologize.
Not a problem. And then just in terms of the actual building construction itself, our buildings, we do build now to a non-combustible construction type, so that means it's a steel frame, concrete slab, typically to an institutional grade, and we do that essentially from the safety point of view. Buildings are fully sprinklered. That includes everything full to an NFPA 13 standard, closets, interstitial spaces, etc., with a fully addressable fire alarm. And we do incorporate LEED principles into our buildings. Our past 2 buildings have actually been LEED Gold and LEED Platinum certified. At this point, we've kind of moving forward on LEED, not necessarily certifying, but building to the principles. Just take a few moments here to kind of go through Benchmark and review who we are, and then I'll also kind of segue slightly into what assisted living actually is. So as Benchmark, we are the largest provider of senior housing in the Northeast. We have 52 properties, 5,000 residents, and 5,000 employees plus. And we do offer a range of, and this is kind of some industry acronyms. We'll see IL, which would be independent living, AL, which is assisted living, memory care, which is those with a diagnosis of early stage dementia and or Alzheimer's disease, and also what are sometimes called CCRCs, which are a continuing care retirement community. Our property in Stamford is one of those. That's a different model than this. That's a buy-in where you actually write a significant check to actually buy in. That's different from what we're doing here. Company was founded in 1997, and it was actually founded by a Fairfield native, Thomas Grape, who's our president and CEO. He still controls the company from when he founded it. And just as a little background, his family moved here in 1959 when he was 9 months old, and he lived here until he went to college. His mother was a counselor at the high school, as well as on the PTA, and I think also on the Activities Commission. And I know they were members and active members of the Fairfield Beach Club. So until recently, I believe his last family member was his sister, still lived in town up until I think the mid-90s. So it's a very, it might sound somewhat corny, but I guess it's always been his dream to be able to bring his dream back to his hometown. And I know it is an important item to him. As again, Mr. Fitzpatrick had mentioned, I'd like to indicate that we're not a speculative builder. We do not build to sell, flip, turn, what have you. We are an owner-operator who develops and we maintain our own properties. So first and foremost, we're an operations company. That's what we do. Our business is essentially people, not necessarily real estate. The real estate portion is nice, but it really comes down to a people business. And just as a kind of a level of that, of the 5,000 employees that we have 1/3 of the development department here tonight between myself and Mr. Yetman. So there's 6 of us that do development. So we really are focused on the operator. And I'd like to point out to that Benchmark has not sold one property or turned it over since we started. Our closest properties to the area, as you can see, are Trumbull, Shelton, Ridgefield, Stamford, and Milford. So we do have several other properties throughout Connecticut. I believe we have 15 total. And while that may seem close, the next kind of point kind of calls out one of the biggest things that we find is that as people age, they very much like to remain in their own community. And we find that over 70% of our residents come from the immediate area. And we've had several stories, and we hear time and again, of people who, as they get older and age, move to, say, warmer climates, Florida, Arizona, and then they move away for a few years, and then it turns out that they decide that they miss their home, they miss the grandkids, they miss their children, and they move back. So it's it's a very important thing to have in a place for them to be able to come back to their home. Our average resident is 87, and by definition needs some level of assistance with activities of daily life. So that could be bathing, dressing, medication management, and each resident is assessed on their own coming in, so it's based on what you actually necessarily need. Some people need a lot of care, and we're happy to provide that. Some people don't even need any care, they just prefer to live in a community where there's other people around. So we do address that on a case-by-case basis when they come in. It's important to also note that we are housing, we're not a skilled nursing or a rehab facility. People live there. Our units are leased on a monthly basis, so it's not like a nursing home or something where you go in on pay on a day-to-day basis, you come and go as you please. We are your house, we are where you live, and as such, the project is not eligible for Medicare or Medicaid reimbursement for that, so I like to think that's an important distinction sometimes when people think of the differences between what assisted living is versus, say, a skilled nursing or a hospital environment. In addition to that, we provide all meals, so 3 meals a day, or 4 or 5, or however many you'd like to have, snacks included. Housekeeping services, transportation, activities, again, everything to help with daily life. And that kind of leads into our next point, which is also extremely important, is that we provide a social aspect of our community, and that's the way we think of our buildings. We call them communities, we refer to them as communities, and we have our residents who live in our communities. And it's almost as important, if not sometimes more important to people to be able to exist in a common community, as opposed to maybe, as you get older, feeling somewhat trapped in your own house maybe, relying on others to visit and or provide transportation, and sometimes having the TV as your only companion. So we find that we provide an important social aspect as well as the actual physical nature of caring for people. And last point I just kind of like to mention here is that we'd like to think of ourselves as a complementary use, not a competitive use or an expansion of the Carrollton as a skilled nursing. Again, we are not skilled nursing. Or as I had mentioned, skilled nursing would be someplace where you go for rehab or therapy. So you leave your house, if you were there, go there, and then go back home. We're your home. So I'd like to think of ourselves as a complementary use, which actually works very nicely with the Carrollton in terms of people being close by and working back and forth. So I don't know if I can see if there's any questions. If not, I can proceed. These are some pictures of our latest community we completed. It was up in Shelton, actually. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the center at Split Rock. It's up next to Vazzi's Restaurant, all the way at the top of the hill. Mainly here, top left and top right pictures are pictures of our outdoor space, and we'll have my architect and landscape architect will get more in-depth description of that later, but we find that's extremely important as well. Top left is the view of our main dining patio, and top right is the courtyard, the secured courtyard for our Alzheimer's memory care garden. Top center picture is the main lobby. Lower left is our main dining room, and lower center and lower right are actual units. So that's a 1-bedroom unit in the middle. It's actually furnished as our model, so it's professionally done, and the bathroom as well. And you can see that it's again, if anything, reinforces the feeling that it's housing as opposed to any kind of skilled nursing or hospital room. Next one, Chris. And these are some other representative Benchmark properties as well throughout Connecticut. Benchmark really strives, again, is not as a developer as so much as an owner-operator. We'd like to become part of the community through activities, and a lot of that you can see in our designs here and some various different properties. We're not cookie cutter. We don't have a standard design that we plop down someplace. We're not a McDonald's or a Burger King or something like that. The top left is in Mystic. That actually overlooks Mystic Harbor. It was actually a school originally. It was an adaptive reuse of that. Building on the right is Niantic. That was developed, and it's about not even a half a mile from the seashore, and that was also designed by our architect that's here tonight, Bechtel, Frank, and Erickson. Woodbridge is more of a colonial look for there. And then Stamford is down, and that's our CCRC property, so that's a little bit of a different animal. But you can see that we do work with the local vernacular, and again, we are not a cookie cutter developer. And that's what I have from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If a senior is living here and then they need to, more care, then they have to leave this facility to get that care?
There does come a point, yes, where that would happen. Again, we are not since we're not a skilled nursing facility, there does come a point we can't, we do not run IVs, we do not, carry out procedures, things of that nature. And also, as is the case in our memory care program, there'll become a time, as dementia cases advance to a point where the resident may become combative or so disoriented that it's difficult to deal with, there is a time when people will have to move out, yes.
All right, thank you.
Which again is, and I'd like to point out again, being that typically when that happens, they do move to a skilled nursing facility and would be right next door, so it's kind of a good back and forth for that.
Well, so, I mean, then Carrollton is a place where someone might go, because I heard you describe it as a rehabilitation.
In the Carrollton?
Yeah.
And it's also a skilled nursing, yes. They have long-term care. They have a wide array of, again, what I would call skilled facilities and skilled techniques as opposed to what we do.
All right, thank you.
Because you don't accept the Medicare and Medicaid, how affordable is it? Will it be affordable for people of Fairfield?
Yeah, it's affordable is always kind of in terms of what people can actually afford, I guess that's a relative question, depending on your own individual means and methods.
Oh, based, I guess, upon the medium.
That I was going to say. So I can basically say, and again, I'll say that typically each case is individual. As I say, we assess them. So if you need a lot of care, you're going to pay a different rate than you will if you need less care. But typically in the range from a monthly basis, you're in about the $4,000 to $7,000 a month range. So which does, when you hear that, it does sound like a large number. But if you extrapolate that over a year and just round numbers, $5,000 a month is $60,000 a year. But if you take into account that our average length of stay, based on our residents' ages of 87, average length of stay is usually about 22 months or so. And typically, most people move in after selling a property or a house. So if you think in terms of that, and then the 60-year, plus you also have to consider that that includes all your meals, all your transportation, all your utilities. There's no more taxes on, on a house or upkeep, maintenance, property. So that's about the ballpark figure.
Thank you.
So there's like nurses on duty all the time. I know it's not a nursing facility, but you would have a nurse on duty.
We have a nurse on duty all times, and then we have what we refer to as CNAs or certified nursing assistants, and then we just have regular staff. But we do have a nurse on duty at all times.
Do you have physicians that come through sometime just in case or to check?
We do set up appointments. Sometimes we have physicians, and it might be in addition to physicians, could be dentists, podiatrists, and we set it up through different contracts with different practices. And we have an actual dedicated we call it a doctor's office, but it's essentially very close to a dentist's office. So it's an area in the building where a visiting physician can come in half a day a week. Residents can set up appointments ahead of time, and they can visit them there and go from that point of view. So it's done on it's not anyone we employ, it's a subcontract, but yes.
Do you have other subcontracts like for hair care or something? We have like on-site salon or something, so people don't have to leave the facility?
That's correct. We actually have very nice salons, to the point of if to get further into our demographic, about 70 or 80% of our residents are women. So we actually have coming from me, not that I have any experience with it, a very nice salon, but we do that.
Beautiful nails.
It's funny you should mention that. We actually do design manicure stations, pedicure stations. We have what we call our wellness suite. So we have actually a spa room, a tub room, it's a therapeutic hot tub, and we do focus on that as well. In addition to that, we also have an exercise room as well. So, some treadmills, some low impact air exercise equipment. So.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Bill. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Mr. Walter Jobst, registered land surveyor. and professional engineer with the Huntington Company.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Walter Jobst. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor in the state of Connecticut. I'm employed by the Huntington Company, which has offices here in Fairfield. This is an existing conditions map. You can see at the front of the property here, we have Carrollton Hospital, we have Mill Plain Road, we have the access drive up to the high school, and we have this vacant piece of land, has two knolls in the rear. We have a pocket wetlands here, very small wetlands in front of a head wall, and then a drainage swale and wetlands associated with that. Site slopes from the two knolls into the four quadrants, north, west, east, and south. We have on-site parking along the front, parking area here to the southeast, parking along the northwest, and parking to the rear of the existing building. Presently, we have a requirement for the Carrollton Hospital of 152 parking spaces. We have on-site 178 spaces, so we are in excess of our minimum requirements. There is storm drainage on the property. We have some in the front. We have a storm line that runs from north to south to the east side of the building and discharges into our wetlands area here. We have some minor off-site drainage coming from the school property. And the area of the entire parcel is 12.24 acres. Next. Our proposal is to construct the senior living facility to the rear of the Carrollton Hospital. It'll be along the east side of the property. In conjunction with that, we were going to provide a new driveway with new parking, and we're going to have a new drop-off area with some handicap parking in the front. That will access off of the access road.
Can you go back one slide? Okay. When you counted the parking spots, did you now take them away? Like you did?
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Next slide.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. The layout of the building complies with all of the zoning requirements as far as setback coverage. A waiver was granted for this parcel, I believe sometime in 2003, maybe a little bit before that, as part of a previous proposal for this property. That waiver grants us a coverage of 29.7%, I think. Our coverage will be 28.4%. So we're within the maximum of the allowed coverage that was granted by the waiver. We have an underground garage that will be to the south of the new building. I guess that's it for this slide. Next slide. Parking. We have a proposed 88-unit facility based on the criteria in the zoning regs. We need 53 new parking spaces. Couple that with the 152 that are required for Carrollton, and we have a total of 205 parking spaces that are required. We'll have...
Can I stop you there for a second? So the police, this light is like right in my face. The notes from the police require a total of 245 spaces?
That's incorrect. That's on the code minute?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incorrect.
So you're proposing a total of 205?
No.
226.
I'm sorry, I thought I just heard you say
No,
205.
we have a requirement of 205 spaces. We will be providing 226 spaces.
So your math is 205 required and 226 provided.
Correct.
Okay. Was there any discussion about that with the police? About the number 245 that they put in their code minutes?
We spoke to them at the end of the code meeting when it was closed. We can, address that issue again with them, but I don't know where they came up with that figure. Wasn't for anything that we had submitted or proposed. I was frankly surprised at that number that they came up with, so.
Okay. We'll look at it. Thank you.
Okay.
You have a question,
Yeah,
Commissioner Barrett?
I mean, I didn't go do the calculations. What do I know the police said something different. Are regulations that consistent with what the...
Regulations, they require 0.6 of a parking space for every unit.
For an assisted
And we
living.
have 88 units times 0.6 gives us, rounding up, 53 new spaces that are required.
So the police notes also state that parking is to be separate from Carrollton. Are you proposing?
Carrollton has standalone parking enough. We're providing 3 spaces in a drop-off circular portion here. We're providing an additional 15 spaces here, which gets to your question about are we going to lose some spaces. We have 178 existing spaces on Carrollton. We will be losing 20 spaces along this area when we reconfigure it. That'll leave remaining parking 158. Carrollton requires 152. We are going to be providing an additional 68 spaces. We'll have 3 here, we'll have 15 here, and we'll have 50 spaces within the underground garage. And that gets us to a total of 226 spaces that we will be providing for the site. And the requirement is for 205 spaces.
Is the parking going to be shared?
Along this strip here, we have a center aisle and we have parking to either side. I'm going to assume that maybe in this area, although it's not heavily used at this point in time, this area can be a shared parking between Carrollton and Benchmark, but the parking in the front and the parking in the underground garage will be strictly for Benchmark's use.
So that's 50 in the underground garage and 3...
3 in the front, and then 15 along the front, the west face of the Benchmark building.
So I'm trying to understand the two things. One is the concern for separation of the parking between the two that's expressed here, and why that is.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'm not quite sure, I've served on that commission for 10 years, I'm not quite sure why the officer thinks the parking has to be separated. Certainly, we have to have adequate parking to support the proposed use, and we do, but there's no reason that the parking has to be quote-unquote separated.
Okay.
And certainly the underground parking and the ones in the turnaround in the front will be limited to this use, but that lot on the west side of the proposed new building, logic tells you that in busy times that may be shared.
Well, there's a building right there, so somebody's
Exactly.
going to park there and they're going to walk across the thing to go to
Precisely.
Carrollton.
And I don't think that's an issue.
So we're looking at this as an improvement to the Carrollton site, as an addition of a new facility, and you're proposing that we should be looking at the entire site, all of the buildings and all, square footage, et cetera, making a parking calculation based on that, and determining whether you provide adequate parking based on the entire site. That's your argument?
Whatever parking Carrollton what we're proposing is something new that's going to need a parking of X I haven't done the analysis of what Carrollton has, Wald has, but we're trying to treat the site as one coherent piece, yes.
Yes,
I have a
Commissioner
question.
Corcoran.
The standard of .6 spaces per unit, does that include employees?
That is strictly a bed count. But yes, but I believe, but
So
That in-
specifically for this kind of facility?
for this kind of facility, because they're providing all of the amenities, transportation being one of them, there's not need for them to have a car
Yeah.
or drive, because bus service is provided, so it's strictly employees, and whatever residents have cars.
What, so you may have said this already, but what is the calculation for the minimum number of parking spaces for Carrollton as it exists?
That is based on their units,
Yeah,
which, if I recall, I think it's 220-something units. Again, at .6.
but
comes-
.6
comes up
is
to
based
100.
on your use,
Yes,
not Carrollton's
yes.
use.
Like I said, but what,
They are grandfathered in with their 152 spaces from previous approvals, from when
Yeah,
they
but
built the
you're
hospital. when they
changing
put it-
that, you're taking a whole strip of their parking away, and...
No, actually, we're not. We're taking 20 spaces that are existing, that are here, and replacing it with 15.
Right, so you're reconfiguring the parking that Carrollton has presently and making less spaces on that
Minimally,
strip
yes.
there. I mean, that's why I was trying to understand whether we're supposed to, from your perspective, and I'm really not trying to be argumentative, whether from your perspective, we should be looking at the site as a whole, and as an improvement, we've got a certain number of buildings, we've got a certain number of units, certain type of use. How many parking spaces are we supposed to be looking at that's required, and
Well,
how many are provided? That's it's really
The
simple.
ownership of the parcel, the 12.2 acres, will be owned by CMF Realty, which is in essence Carrollton. So the parcel should be considered as a whole. The number of spaces that are required should be considered as a whole for the whole piece. What Carrollton's needs are plus what Benchmark's needs are as
Okay.
a whole. The circulation within the parcel is shared by both entities.
I can see that.
I would say
So what
that
is, so based on all of that, what is the minimum number of spaces
that are required.
that are required
205 spaces
for the whole
for the
thing?
whole parcel, both Carrollton and Benchmark use. We are providing 226 spaces for the whole parcel.
And so the calculation is 53 for
Benchmark.
Benchmark, which would mean 205 minus 53,
152 for Carrollton.
152.
Is Benchmark leasing the land from Carlton?
yes.
So it's one parcel, they're doing a land lease on the property.
Yeah, okay.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yeah, my point, there was, just wanted to, the different calculations, because we're trying to, we're going to regard the property as a whole. The regulations, which we never see because we don't have any assisted living facilities in Fairfield, is 28.6.16, which actually is very clear. It says assisted living facility, 6/10 of a parking space for each unit. It doesn't say anything about anything else, so to have one of these, I believe it is exactly as you say. However, for a chronic convalescent nursing home, it's a different calculation.
Right.
I don't know how the Carlton's was calculated to 152, but that's one for each of 4 beds, plus one for each employee. That one actually takes into account employees, the other one is just a blended rate. So I'd say, how did, Carrollton is 152 and this is
Well,
53. That's what I'm trying to... yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
That's their argument.
Mhm.
I think at some point, we're going to have to ask about Carrollton's,
Yeah. Yeah, and that
Their
152
calculations.
is a grandfathered figure from when they went and got their...
I guess, my question is, when we
Approvals.
said grandfather, was that 152 sufficient to meet our regulations, or is that just what's there now?
I believe it's both. I believe that's what was approved, but I also believe that that is sufficient to meet your regulations.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we don't have to find the answer right now. I mean, that's the argument, we'll have to do the calculations, and, you know, it either is or it isn't.
Right, yeah, I'm just, like, if it was 150, whatever, you say, well, this is a separate unit, and you need 53, and we're providing 68, that would be different, but we're talking about
Pretty close numbers.
pretty close numbers and shared.
Talking about it as a whole.
We're gonna see how it all
Correct.
works out as a whole.
Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
As far as handicap spaces go, our requirement is for 3 handicap spaces. We will be providing 5 spaces, 3 here at the main entrance and drop-off, and 2 within the garage. Carrollton has, I believe, 6 or 7 spaces, handicap spaces of their own. Taking the parcel as a whole, the requirement would be for 7 handicap spaces. We have 10 or 11 total, so we are in excess of that. I guess next slide.
Before you go, are you going to access and roads now?
Yes,
Okay.
unless you have questions on
Yeah,
the
that's my
previous.
next, I want to hear about
You're
that, yeah.
This is our, again, one of our accesses is the new access road that's coming off of the access road to the high school. There's a existing parking lot across the drive. There is an existing stop sign here with a stop bar, as well as here for westbound traffic. Our point of exit will be here. Our ISD requirement for the 85th percentile speed limit, which is 20 miles per hour. Our required sight distance is 225 linear feet. To the west, we require 225. We have 230, which goes beyond the stop sign by about 45 or 50 feet. To the east, we, again, a requirement of 225 linear feet, and we have in excess of 340 linear feet to the east. So we meet the requirements for sight distance. This has been reviewed by Laura Pooley at Engineering, and she is satisfied with that we have provided enough sight distance. Now, in order to do that to the west, we'll be taking the grade down in this area about 18 to maybe 24 inches and removing this vegetation. I believe our new plantings will be behind on our property. This here is the property line. So any new plantings will take place in this area and will not inhibit any site to the west.
Is the 20 miles an hour posted or
No,
measured?
that was operating speeds. I think Mr. Galante will touch upon that during his presentation.
Is this point of entry designed for the benchmark entrance, or is the Carrollton entrance also going to be used?
Can we go back one slide? The intent for benchmark is that our entrance is here because this is the front of the facility. This is our drop-off area. We have a porte cochere, you can drive under, drop off. But because it is one piece in its entirety, you can come in along the Carrollton piece and come up this way, or come in and go over this way. I don't know why you do that. This is more of a direct shot. Either facility could use this, but just due to the layout and the geometry, I would assume that anybody accessing the front of Benchmark building would use this new point of access. And that Carrollton would continue to use their 2 driveway entrances here and here, and then an exit here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is Mr. Galante, because I don't want to bother you, is Mr. Galante going to talk about the use of the access road more and traffic? Is that, okay, then I'll hold the questions for him.
Okay. Next slide after that. As part of our proposal, we will be providing new drainage structures and facilities for our development. We'll have a stormwater management plan in place. We will be constructing a shallow detention basin in this area. With that, we'll have a hydrodynamic separator. We'll have a control structure which will meter out the flows. That'll all tie into our new drainage, which will then tie into our existing drainage. For the front half of the building, we will be providing a underground recharge chambers within the drop-off area. Our garage and surface areas to the south of the building will have new drainage that will drain toward the existing small detention pond. We will have another hydrodynamic separator in line before it discharges, and we will be enlarging that detention basin 3 to 4 times its current size to provide additional stormwater detention. We will be constructing a new outlet control structure at the discharge point of the detention basin. This basin and the one in the northeast corner were designed for not only handling the quantity of stormwater that site will generate, but also the quality of that stormwater. Again, the internal grading of this basin coupled with the hydrodynamic separator will provide that, as will the same in the southerly basin. At the discharge point of the site, which is along the southeast corner and runs along the exit at I-95 at Mill Plain, we will have a reduction in post-development storms below their pre-development rates, and we will be retaining on our portion of the site any of the new development. We will be retaining on-site the 1-inch storm event within our facilities. We have water and gas and electricity available to our site. We will be installing a new sanitary sewer line, which will come from the building, go up to the access road, go down the south curb line of the access road and tie into the existing sewer in Mill Plain Road, which drains several thousand feet down to the post road.
We got sewer approval? You got approval from the sewer already?
We are in the process of doing that. We met before the Sewer Commission several months ago. They requested that we do some flow studies on the existing sewer line in Mill Plain Road. Those have just been completed last week, and I will be getting that information, and then we will bring that back to the Sewer Department, Sewer Commission for their approval. Based on my initial calculations of use on that line, the use is well below the capacity of that sewer line, so I don't foresee any problems at all.
Any reason why you think engineering wants a riprap detail?
A riprap detail? Probably at this outlet, and we may have one on our detail sheet already. If we don't, we'll certainly provide it. But I believe we have a riprap detail and calculations that go with that as far as size and width. But
I've never seen that before. I don't know why it would.
I don't either. If it's not there, we'll be more than happy to provide it for them. Next slide. Again, as I said, we'll have a stormwater treatment train that will be constructed as part of our proposal. This will bring us into compliance with the DEP 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual, and we will be complying with their recommendations for their water quality volume, their WQV, and their groundwater recharge and runoff volume, their GRW. As I said, in compliance with the DEP's manual, we will be reducing the 2-year post-development storm below its 1-year pre-development rate, and all other storms will be reduced below their existing discharge rates. We have a current conservation permit that is in effect. We have been through the code enforcement meeting. I believe you have those minutes there. We have been reviewed by the engineering department, and if you don't have a copy of that email, I guess we can, Mr. Fitzpatrick will, Attorney Fitzpatrick will take care of that. And as I said, we have adequate site distance, and engineering has reviewed that, and they have reviewed our site plan in total and find no fault with that. If there's any other questions?
Yeah.
That concludes my portion of the...
Go ahead.
What is this fencing is required on a height of 4 feet difference from top of structure on a code review minutes?
I think that's a just in case requirement. Any grade change that is more than 4 feet in height, you have to provide a fence along the top portion of that. I think that was put in there for our exterior recreational area, but that's going to be all enclosed anyway, so that's a moot point.
Okay.
Can we just go back to the coverage waiver?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it's also in the notes. What waiver was obtained? Is there a waiver?
Attorney Fitzpatrick made.
Okay.
I'm
Okay,
just a
very
lowly
good.
engineer.
All right. And then there's a note also about the access road use, which you've described. Is that pursuant to an easement, or is it by right that you're using the access road?
Mr. Chairman, it's an easement, actually. Let me read to you from the deed of Frederick S. Sturgis, Jr. to Claire May Taylor, predecessor in title on this property, which states it's a deed from July of 1939, together with the perpetual right and easement in common with the grantor and the owner or owners of other properties bounding the right-of-way hereinafter described along its northerly line, and his and their respective heirs and assigns to pass and repass over said right-of-way and to install in, on, over, and or under said right-of-way such pipes, conduits, poles, and wires as may be necessary or convenient to serve the property herein conveyed and other adjacent land of the grantor and such other properties with water, gas, sewers, electricity, telephone, and other customary utilities. So this is a right-of-way which was conveyed to this property by virtue of that deed, and when Benchmark obtained a title policy from Chicago Title Insurance Company, it includes in the legal description together with a right-of-way generally 50 feet in width over land of the town of Fairfield along the northerly boundary of the above described parcel as described in that certain deed from Frederick Sturgis Jr. to Clara May Taylor, recorded in volume 175 at page 43 of the Fairfield Land Records. That's the very deed I just read the piece to you.
Okay, so that's the right-of-way description for the access road itself in favor of the subject property?
The property acquired together with the right to utilize that 50-foot right-of-way, yes.
Right, okay. And that includes both the existing entrance as well as the new cut that you're going to make?
The entire piece, certainly.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else for Mr. Jobs?
No? Okay,
Thank you, Walt.
I think we're good.
Mr. Chairman, I'd now like to introduce Mr. Jerry Frank, a principal in the architectural firm of Bechtel, Frank and Erickson Architects, Inc. of Lexington, Mass. Jerry.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners. My name is Jerry Frank. I'm principal at Bechtel, Frank Erickson Architects. We're located in historic Lexington, Massachusetts, right on the green. It is a sincere pleasure to be here this evening to present our project to you, as well as to sort of continue our relationship with Benchmark, which now is realizing is going back over 15 years and making me feel a lot older than I care to feel. What's really wonderful about Benchmark is the sense of community that Bill described earlier on. It's not just creating housing, it's creating places for people to gather and live. And what they do is create that by, allowing, I'm going to just do a very brief kind of walkthrough in here, really very residential, home-like features such as a fireplace when you walk in, lots of activity areas here, and then you have separate wings of residential. We have some of the assisted living here, main dining room and activity rooms, small little movie theater kind of entertainment area, and we have the memory care element here on this ground floor. Another hallmark of Benchmark is the way that they really value the exterior spaces between the buildings, so that you create, these lovely dining courts, such as you saw in the earlier photos, and other places back in here, and in the memory care, a very secure, fenced-in area, so that it's environments for seniors that what we refer to as an enabling environment, that people can move freely and comfortably and live as independently as possible as they age. Chris, you want to go on to the next? The second floor, again, many more residential wings, but again, sort of broken out with common areas brought out. Bill referred to this health and wellness spa that we created as very much a prominent feature, which does have exercise, it does have beauty salons, it has, as we are all aging, sort of the notion of having sound mind and sound body can really work together. So massages are used, podiatrists, all these types of things are brought into play here. Next slide, Chris. The top level, what is really nice, and we'll show you some elevations perspectives, are all of their assisted living, and again, some common spaces that we've created to it, but they're under the eaves of the roof, and so again, a very residential feel of dormers that really create rooms with a lot of character in them. And the square footage of some of the studios that you saw is over the minimum 350 required, and they really reach up to some of the two bedrooms at around 550 to 575 for some of for the larger units. Another really important feature, as we'll talk about, the shingle style and the type of design that we use larger roofs. And one of the things that we do with them is we hide mechanical units. You have all these condensing units and things that can really clutter up the space. And so there are all these, what I refer to as wells, that we actually sink the roof down so that the mechanical equipment can sit at the top of the roof, but unless you're a drone or flying over in a plane, you're not going to see it. And that's a really important feature. Basement area, we refer to the 50 parking spaces, which will be used for also concealing areas for trash and compactors, so on. It is located in here, and then the parking that we just spoke about earlier is down below. We're working with the grades that are here on site. This is what is nice. It's a building that we're going to work really in harmony with the gradings that you have in play here, and this works very nicely for creating this kind of sort of hidden parking space below.
Work with the what?
We hit the parking below.
Work with what you said?
The grading, the grades of because the building sort of sits up higher, and then it drops down to that. This level is dropped quite a bit lower, and so as you're on grade with here, you're going through here, but then you're basically kind of cutting into the hill at that point.
What's the height of that garage?
The floor-to-ceiling height?
Mm-hmm.
I think if we had it, get back, I think it's like 12 feet high.
12 feet?
And it's a steel frame, open, structure in here, and so we said fully sprinklered building, including the garage as well. One of the things, and commensurate with the beauty of Fairfield, Connecticut, and what Benchmark is, we really looked at the shingle-style architecture, which was fairly typical of seaside resorts all throughout New England area. A number of the things that we've spoke about is that you have sort of the larger roofs that come into play, different eave levels, and a building that in a way is not overly ornamental. It does have clapboards and shingles on it. In fact, we're looking at the fiber cement materials, which are really sturdy, recycled materials in here. They're very durable, great fire resistance, take paint like a son of a gun. It's really quite wonderful. And again, break up the massing of it by the dormers that we talked about before, the large porch at this main entrance on the north facade, and just really very, very, in a way, simple detailing. But a building by the form that you just saw in the plans is broken up to not create such a huge box. And then the fact is that it really looks more like a two-story with the top floor really under the eaves of the roof itself. And I mean, they sort of thought of it as kind of this, in a way, the very romantic notion of what these grand hotels were like, of sort of the, the ramblingness of it pronounced. We very much stick with the natural, neutral colors, really to work well with the trees. In fact, the idea of really keeping a lot of the vegetation really on site is very much in keeping with the same philosophy. Next slide.
What is the height of that front portico in the lower right-hand corner?
This guy, the front facade?
Down on the bottom.
Back in here. It basically has to have a fire truck to be able to go underneath it through
I'm
it.
asking you, what is the height?
The height of it, I believe, was at 16 feet.
Okay, very good, thank you.
One of the greatest inventions has been Google Earth and sort of Google SketchUp, which has been instrumental in our work and working with all our projects and all our clients. It allows us to have the actual photographs of the site itself, take our building, get it into size, and really put it in context to where we are. This is the view from the main entrance that we talked about into here.
That's off the access road?
That is correct, sir. And and here's the road that's coming into here where the parking is, the entrance to the garage, and the main entrance in through here. But you get a sense, yes, sir.
Can I stop you there for a second? We were talking about sight lines before, and there was a comment that there was going to be no vegetation or such, in the corner to impede the sight lines. So
right.
Here we're seeing some pine trees at the very edge of the.
Right. Well, in fact, one of the things that this is
just the rendering, or
I think it is the rendering in this case, because what was explained earlier on is that the planting was going to happen set back on the property line, which was a good, I think, about 15 feet away from the intersection of it.
So this is the planting plan. They look like they're pretty much on the edge of the entrance.
Mr. Kenny address that, Mr. Chairman, he's our next speaker.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Great. If you want, look at the next slide, actually. There you go. Part of that was to really give the impression of having, what's that?
You should have done that right away.
There you Well, then there's sort of the comment that it does the building sort of look like that there's too much planting in front of it. I mean, what we were doing, the notion was trying to set some back in here to sort of give this just a little bit more privacy in it, or to not sort of feel that the larger structure in place. But you do have the portico share in place. Again, you see the feeling of the clapboards here, the shingles, the shingles that we have up above, again, to sort of break up, but really simple detailing that we have into there, and, the same kind of, works that you'd see on a lot of structures that we'd see in and around town here. Lighting, really important. There was a photometric study done and included in. We tend to really use the porches to have lighting underneath because we're extremely sensitive to any kind of light pollution through that. The drawings do locate where we have some sconces on the exterior of the building. They're all downward-facing light fixtures as well. Next slide. We're just giving you some location maps for following, different views of, where we've taken some of the different perspectives in here. First one from the play field that we were just sort of looking at. We'll go through two from the Mill Plain Road, and third, sort of overlooking the Carlton, and then from the football field at the high school.
I don't know if
Yes, sir.
pose this question to you,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, but right now where it sits, the Carlton is pretty buffered from the school. Is there going to be an issue with an assisted living facility right on the track of the school? Night games, lights?
Yeah, that's a lighted field.
I mean, I'm not talking about what's coming off the assisted living facility, but what the school is projecting onto the...
May I take a stab at that? I will show you the slide of it in terms of what it looks like with the image of it. In short, there's sort of a big no to that because I think the football fields and the football games and the excitement will actually generate a lot of interest by residents in it. And again, I think the notion that what Benchmark's really got at is not isolating a community and making them feel part of the fabric of the community. And I could see residents going over to watch games. I think it would be part of that.
That's all well and good. That's great. And I hope that happens. I just want to see it the other way around where they say, we have to do something about these games because they're affecting our patients that are living here.
Yeah, I don't think that would be an issue. I really don't. Yeah, right, and Bill was just telling me there are some other locations that are near other schools and playing fields like that, and I think it's a welcome neighbor. This is a view from the playground view into here as it exists. You can see a little bit of the building that you sort of see from beyond it. This was a nice summer day, and now, we took it and made it more like today, or, the end of November, of what you're going to see when the leaves kind of come down. So you get just a little bit of view of that there's a building and beyond there. Next slide. From Mill Plain Road, kind of coming in, looking at the access. Next slide, you see a little bit of building. That's in from behind. And then we'll take the leaves off. You would see more of it in from behind as you get to the access road, kind of coming beyond. From the entrance to Carlton, here it exists. Here you would see the building as it sits behind it. And then on a cold November day, this is what you would have through here. The last shot is from the football field that you were just referring to, as it was a few weeks ago. How the building would sit there and relate to that, and then once all the leaves come down, and they get into the winter scene of how the view would be into play there. Next slide.
Where were your mechanicals again?
The
mechanicals. Where were your mechanicals?
We're going to be putting the mechanicals we're going to create these roof wells. So all of the condensing units, all of these pieces are going to be up there through there. There would be one mechanical piece that would be out in one of the courtyards, sort of isolated from it, but the majority of that farm of condensers that you sort of see all over the place would be at rooftop.
And what about generators?
Yeah, the generator is what you would have outside, and that was actually, if you want to, I don't know, Chris, if you can go back to one of the floor plans and kind of just quickly keep going back. Yeah, first floor would be great. Yeah, so I think right out into over there is where we were having the generator sort of put into place. I think what is pretty important and been a hallmark of Benchmark's work tends to be not having like a backside of a building that's just loaded with stuff. It's just all the facades are really pretty major to them. So there would be, generator piece that would be put
That's
into
an
back
emergency
there.
generator?
That's what I'm asking about, emergency.
Correct. Are there any other questions?
Just do me a favor, just to address these two things from the fire department code review minutes. Number 5 and number 8, I don't know if you have them there.
Microphone.
One is on the second floor, you're really pushing the limits on the maximum exit access traveling distance, the furthest bedroom to the furthest point to an exit, not allowed exits. So I presume the plan would be that you are moving them to a shelter area.
I mean,
Code review, under the fire department, number 5 and number
Right.
8.
I mean, our code reviewer actually had us in pretty, really good shape because we have them at, here are all of the different stairs that we've kind of put into play into here. There's, obviously, there's a supplemental stair here, and then certainly at all of the, the endpoints as well on there. That wasn't brought up as an issue, certainly in our code analysis to that as being, short of it at all in terms of.
Bottom line, Commissioner, these plans will go back to Bill Kessler before any building permit is signed off on, so
Right.
we'll have to, there may have been changes here which address his concerns.
Right.
In any event, we have to satisfy his concerns moving forward.
Right, and it includes when we supply the drawings of full code analysis. It gets written up chapter and verse, included with all the documents that we submit.
All right, when we get to 8, then if the council's going to review it, we might as well just let number 8 go, and then she's going to review it. And it addresses, there is one main hallway and a service lane under number 8 as well.
Could you speak a little louder? I couldn't hear that.
Memory care to assisted living. There is one main hallway and a service lane. On number 8.
Could you go to the... Oh, there's this area that basically connects the main kitchen that allows, this is where food would be prepared and then coming into, the main area here. But, the main circulation, really carries through. And that's quite critical because the notion of folks with dementia and early dementia tend to want to wander. And so we really do have to be very careful and are limiting, points of entry and
Right.
travel from it.
And I think the point is that when you limit those points of entry and, egress, if there's an emergency, then your points of exit are similarly limited, which is why I think the comment was raised. So can you just point out the memory care area?
Yeah, all the residences are in this blue-purpley kind of view. This is the memory care unit. So you'd have the entry, point really coming from here, and then we have this service entry point in through here. And
So
then,
the only way, the way that those residents would then leave that area would be through that,
and there are stairs that we have here.
Those are emergency.
Those would be for emergency, that's correct. And then we have exits that go out into the courtyard that we've created, outdoor space here that would be fenced in that actually also has emergency, exit out of it, although it's not highlighted we want residents not to take off.
And that's not in response to, but accommodates the other concern that the area be fenced in, and that's...
Correct, and that's been pretty much typical in all the residents that we've ever worked on and there's usually a knock box, so a fire department can kind of come in and, get into it, and, and we work very hard in the landscape design of all of that is that it's not something that would be accessed down and easy, except for emergency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other
Anybody else?
questions?
Questions?
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Mr. Bill Kenny of William Kenny Associates.
Good evening, I'm Bill Kenny, Principal of William Kenny Associates, a registered landscape architect and professional wetland scientist. The planting plan for the property is quite extensive. It does cover all sides of the building with a lot of detailed plantings, and the plantings overall are grouped into three major groups or types of plantings. There's conservation plantings or wetland plantings, this being in the northeast corner of the property, just south of the high school access road, and then some conservation plantings, meadow planting on the southern end of the building, and lastly, actually, there's some planting off to the side here in the stormwater basin that's being enlarged. Next, we have some screening plantings. There's a total of about 60 trees on site, and 30 of those will be evergreen trees that provide screening. So there was the discussions earlier about views to and from the high school, and there's quite a bit of evergreen tree plantings that are proposed in this area here to help to mitigate that and filter that. And lastly, there's some evergreen tree plantings along the north end of the property. The question about sightlines, the plantings stop at the northern property line. There's about a 20-foot or so distance here, full length of a car. Go pull up here, so someone sitting, the sight line would be about from that location, so we're set back there. In that view earlier, there was the wood guide rail. That wood guide rail is right here, if you remember.
So the rendering was not exactly accurate?
Correct, I think so.
Because those plantings were right up against the wood rail
Correct,
in the rendering.
right.
So this is accurate.
Yes, yes. And lastly, the third type of planting, so the first was more conservation and habitat, second was a screening, and lastly are just ornamental plantings to help define and beautify the various spaces on the property, the entrance and arrival area, the courtyards that are both east and west of the property, and then the memory courtyard in the back, and then foundation plantings really extending along almost all faces of the building.
Yeah, there are quite a few. I mean, it's extensive, landscaping and plantings. Have you looked at the regulations around shade trees in the parking lot? Our regulations require a shade tree in the parking lot for every 5 spaces, 10, every 10. So, I don't know, I just don't see any shade trees. There's no rendition of the existing plantings around the Carrollton building, so I don't know if they're any on the other side, but...
You know, I do not have that answer for you this evening. There are a total of 59 trees, so 30 are evergreen. We've got 29 shade trees proposed on the property.
Yeah, and I like I said, it's extensive and it looks, terrific all around the property.
Right.
Except we do have a regulation that requires shade trees in the parking lot, one for every 10.
Obviously, we're not putting any in the underground.
No.
But those ones on the side there, aren't there...
I just want to know what you're considering to meet that.
Looks to me like there's 3 trees,
Yes. Yep. There's
and if there's 18 spaces...
yes.
So those, and again, I'm just asking to confirm which ones we're supposed to be considering as meeting those regulations, and if it's those 3...
that I anticipated the commission considering.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Corcoran?
Hi, I'm interested in maintaining native plantings. Does this plan incorporate native plantings?
Yes.
As part of
The
Connecticut?
vast majority of the proposed plants are native. I would say around 75%. So we've tried to use as much of native plants as possible. Certainly in the conservation areas, this is 100% native and 100% native there. And in the stormwater basin area here, will be 100% native. And then the rest of the property is 75% native plantings.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Chairman, at this point, I'll introduce Mr. Michael Galante of Frederick P. Clark Associates to discuss the traffic analysis this firm prepared.
Are we done with the projector? Yeah. You got boards, right?
Yeah, but I'm doing projector first.
You are. Okay. It's right in my eyes. I'm looking right at it.
Good evening, Mike Galante of Frederick Clark Associates. Before I get into the traffic portion, which is my presentation, Chris, we can go back to slide 13, which is the site plan. Maybe the next one back. That one, no, that one. Okay, thank you. Just to continue on what Walter Joseph was talking about with the site plan itself, and I thought that would be the best place for me to start before I get onto traffic, which is external to the site itself. This site, the entire Carlton site, has frontage on Mill Plain Road, which is on the west side or on the left side of this graphic. Along the top side is the school driveway, access drive to the, and there it goes.
Oh, that's much better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay. But just to go back, frontage along Mill Plain Road. I see this as the main access drive to the nursing home. I believe this will become the main access drive to the assisted living in the back, which has the majority of the parking here. This is the school driveway, serving the high school and the middle school. And let's call this the guest main entrance drive to the circular driveway along the front of the building. From our traffic perspective, we looked at all of these driveways along Mill Plain Road for the nursing home, and of course the main driveway, or the, I'll call it the northerly main driveway, serving the new Benchmark facility. From a worst case scenario, I put all of my new traffic on the school driveway and put it into the circular drive in front of the building itself. But in reality, someone coming off, and you see it at the nursing home in the morning, someone comes off the turnpike and they go right into this driveway right here, and they come in and they park back in here. You'll see.
So you're talking about them parking in that parking lot there for the Benchmark facility?
This one, this is Benchmark's facility here.
Yeah.
I'm just saying access to that, there are really two access points. It's this driveway here, which is existing along Mill Plain Road. That certainly serves the existing nursing home. And you have two one-way driveways in here. And then we have our proposed main driveway to the front circular building, which is in here off the school driveway. My traffic study, I put all the site traffic here as a worst case to look at this intersection. And I just wanted to touch on that, and I know you may have had a question or two.
Well, I did. Maybe if I ask before you start, you're going to cover it in your presentation, then you won't have to stop.
I'll try.
Just my concern with the access road, where I think it was mentioned in the code enforcement, is today, that road really, past a certain point, to me, only serves the Ludlow campus. Fairfield Ludlow High School and Roger Ludlow Middle School.
Yes.
It doesn't serve anything else, so everybody going in is going to that campus, people are coming out. Students, buses.
Correct.
There's athletic events of the school. So I just wanted to, hopefully you can cover how this facility, regardless of what the peak hours are, is going to interact with the traffic generated by that campus.
Yeah.
And that was just my concern, because it's not used, regardless of an easement, it's not used that way today. It's used to go to school, not to go to...
It's in that driveway, and we did all the school studies I think in 2003, 2004, and we actually insisted on this connection to Mill Plain Road to take traffic off of Uncor Road. So this is a key part of the campus, if you will, and I think you would agree to that.
Yeah, I use it all the time to that road, so...
To cut through? To cut through?
No, to go to Ludlow. My daughter coaches at Ludlow, so I go to games at that school, so I always go in that way, and again, right today, it's just school traffic. Tomorrow, it'll be something else, so
That's true, that's correct. But there is a driveway here to the nursing home right here that is used certainly for people to park along in here. When my dad was here, I used to use that connection when I parked right there. But this driveway will function as certainly continuing the nursing home, so I'll call it a secondary driveway, and then of course using this access drive to the circular drive in front of the building itself. I believe a majority of the traffic, staff and guests that go here on a regular basis will actually come in this driveway right here. If they're coming from the south, and about 65% of our traffic is coming from that direction. The rest is coming from north, Uncor Road, Mill Plain Road, towards Brookside and so on. Now, if we may, if you can go back to my slides, please. This is, everything I'm showing you, everything is included in the traffic report. Some of the figures that are not on the PowerPoint I'm showing on boards, but they're also in the report. So there's nothing new that I'm showing you tonight, but it's going to kind of run through this. This is a figure, it's figure 2 in the report itself, but just for reference purposes, I-95, Mill Plain Road, the green, if you will, Sturgis Park, the school access drive right in here, and the site back in here labeled the site near the track. Next. We conducted an extensive traffic counting program for a development that honestly is generating 20 trips in the morning, 32 trips in the afternoon, peak hour, and 40 trips on a Saturday midday. And the traffic study is related to the commuter peak hours because those were found to be the highest volumes on the roads. And we've done a pretty detailed analysis of that to identify those cases. But this figure, which is, I'm not sure, it's figure 4 in the report itself, simply shows the morning peak hour, which was identified as 7 to 8 a.m. What's driving the peak hour here is the school traffic, the high school traffic, and then of course the middle school traffic coming right after that about 20 minutes later. We did counts for a period of time from 6:30 in the morning to 9 to capture the arrival of staff. That's for the 7 o'clock shift. This also picks up staff coming into the high school, staff coming in for the nursing home, and it catches the beginning, at the end of the peak hour, it starts to catch the middle school traffic. Just for reference purposes, you can go to the next slide. Next slide is the weekday afternoon peak hour, which was identified as 5 to 6 p.m., and it's clearly the commuter peak hour. Now, I'll show you a chart later on, which is next to me, which is table A1 in the report itself. If you look at the afternoon time periods from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and 5 to 6, and all of those volumes, the 5 to 6 is the highest volumes on the roads. Even though the school traffic is peaking certainly between 2 and 3, the commuter traffic is much higher, so we use those volumes as a background condition. The highest volumes were found at a weekday morning, weekday afternoon, and Saturday midday was the weekday afternoon peak hour. Roughly the volumes on Mill Plain Road are about 1,300 vehicles in the Interstate 95 area, if you will, the ramps, and along the nursing home frontage about 600 vehicles. So there's a significant change in traffic volume from different sections of the road. If you can go to the next slide. This is simply the Saturday midday, which is 11 a.m. to 12 noon. And again, the counts were conducted from 11 to 2. And keep in mind, and in the report, we have hourly volumes for all of these roads, including the ramps to 95. So we're identifying the highest volumes to show worst case, certainly, for the purposes of the analysis. And keep in mind, we're adding 20 to 40 trips onto this road system during the different peaks. Saturday, when we have our highest site traffic, the volumes on the roads are actually lower than the other time periods. Next slide, Chris. This is just a reference. We used 110 beds, and we use the word beds because that's the criteria in the trip generation handbook that we use as traffic engineers. There are actually 108 beds proposed, and of course that's translated into, I believe, 88 units. So we generated traffic, and here you'll see the 20 in the morning peak hour, the 32 in the weekday afternoon peak hour, and the 40 on the Saturday midday peak hour. These are 1 hour volumes, and of course the entering is higher in the morning coming in. The afternoon tends to be equal, and Saturday tends to be equal. But that's the table in the report, table 4, which summarizes the site traffic generation, which we use in the analysis. Next slide, please. This is figure 20 in the report. And there are lots of figures in between that show and reference the projected, what we call background or no-build traffic volumes projected from an existing condition through a future design year. In this case, we're using 2016 as a design year. Just for reference, traffic, as we have found over the last several years, certainly doesn't grow like it used to. We used to use 2% per year as normal growth and other traffic on top of that. We now use, in this area along the coast in Fairfield County, anywhere from 0 to 0.5% per year as growth. We are actually finding that in the last 3 to 5 years, traffic volumes have actually decreased significantly. But to be conservative, we increased the traffic by 0.5% per year. We also added traffic in for the high school expansion that was just finished not that long ago. We added, I think, 6 classrooms. We added that traffic in. The cafeteria is bigger. Not that the cafeteria is generating traffic, but the classrooms are based on the increase in students. Again, we did that study for the town, so we have that information pretty handy. At the time of the counts, the Sturgis Park fields were not in use because they were going through a reseeding, so we added traffic for those fields in use for a Saturday, and we used soccer games 3 games at one time with an overlap of 3 games starting after the first set of games finished. So we added traffic back in for that to be conservative. And that shows up in the existing volumes, and it certainly shows up in the no-build volumes, and certainly shows in the build volumes. Chris, next slide. Actually, if you don't mind, go back. I didn't really talk about the distribution. We determined the pattern of traffic for the 20, the 32, and the 40 trips, and I know you can't see it from here, but well, I can't see it from here at all, but we put a fair amount of traffic on the turnpike, which the state actually requires us to do, then traffic on the Mill Plain Green, Mill Plain Road to the north, and off the map would be Uncle Road and so on, and certainly traffic going back towards the Post Road. And we apply these percentages to the traffic volume in the area. Now, this graphic is the afternoon peak hour volumes, and it shows the volume of traffic that is added at each of the intersections. And we included in the study the ramps to I-95, both northbound and southbound. We'll consider 95 northbound, southbound at this point. Mill Plain Road at Sturgis and the southbound ramps, all of the driveways for the nursing home, the existing 3 driveways, and the all-way stop sign control intersection at the high school campus driveway, if you will. And that's what's shown here. And of course, the driveway to the nursing home on the access road and our main or proposed driveway on this road itself. Next slide, please. Let's skip this. I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but if you go to the next one, and I know you really can't see it from anywhere there, but this is table 5 in the traffic report, and this is it's a summary of what's called the synchro analysis, which is a model that we use to analyze before and after conditions for traffic. Now, keep in mind we're adding 20, 32, and 40 trips to the road system, and we go through this model as far as impacts. And yes, we all know Mill Plain Road is a busy road. It's certainly busy at the Post Road, even though the state's put new traffic signals in there recently, and they keep on changing their mind about the crosswalk locations and the pavement markings, because they've taken them out and put them back in and taken them out, and they're not back in completely yet. But the new traffic signal is in place. What you see, and I won't go through all the details of this sheet, but what it shows is that there are delays on the northbound off-ramp from 95, which I experience at different times of the day. The southbound off-ramp opposite Sturgis Road, which is an all-way stop sign control intersection, and I call it the high school driveway. They each have delays that are experienced by motorists, mostly during the week, in this case during the peak hours. This chart, if you look at the increase in delay, the increase in delay is quite small in each case, except the northbound off-ramp during the afternoon peak hour, where we had 3 vehicles and we increased delay by 26 seconds. Now, we've had discussions on other intersections in other parts of the town as far as the model and how it operates, and I can tell you that the new highway capacity manual that's coming out next year suggests that we actually go out and do actual studies to measure delay as opposed to just a model. So we'll be doing that in the future.
40 seconds, right? Okay.
So, to that end, if the increase is nearly 26 seconds, how is there no effect on the level of service?
When you,
You know what I mean?
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
That approach is level service F.
Oh,
There is no level below that.
so it could increase
So the
100
the
seconds.
change in delay, the change or the impact is the increase in delay,
Right.
okay?
So, yeah.
But all the other locations and by movements are fairly small increase, and I can't see it from here, but small increases in delay in the 3 to 5 seconds increase. The only one that shows up with the 3 additional vehicles on the off-ramp is that 26-second delay in the afternoon. Now, keep in mind, in that analysis, that is a 1-lane approach with shoulders on both sides,
I read that part of your...
and we all use that as a 2-lane exit. So if I analyze that as a 2-lane exit, I can tell you the right turn movement will probably go down to a B or C, and the left turn would probably stay at an F.
And will it still be nearly 26 seconds?
No, it would probably change. It would probably be for the right turn, if it was just a right turn lane only, it would probably be, we're not adding any traffic to the right turn movement, so it might be an increase of 5 seconds, because we had a couple of cars on Mill Plain Road, someone exiting the site, for example. The left turn wouldn't be 26, I guess I should have calculated, it wouldn't be 26 seconds, probably around 15 seconds is my estimate. But I don't analyze it that way. The state wants us to analyze it with the actual lane configuration.
No, that's the way it's...
And that's why we do it that way. But it certainly functions as a two-lane exit all the time. Next slide, Chris. This chart is a graphic that we don't use too often, but we used it really to show the amount of traffic that we're adding, which is the red line on top, which in this case is the northbound ramps at Mill Plain Road. The entire intersection has around 1,300 vehicles during the 1 hour period in the morning. We're adding 9 vehicles. It's an under 1% increase in traffic. The afternoon, we have round numbers again, 1,550 vehicles total for the intersection. We're adding 13 vehicles. Saturday, 1,347 vehicles, we're adding 17 vehicle trips. The red line is the increase in traffic. And just wanted to show that it's really a very insignificant amount of increase in traffic against a very high level of traffic that's on Mill Plain Road today. That's the total intersection volume, so that takes into account the ramp, approach, and all the traffic on Mill Plain Road itself for a 1 hour period. Next slide. This is the same format, but the southbound ramps opposite Sturgis Road, same idea. The total traffic for the intersection, 1,300, 1,500, 1,300, and we're rating 13, 20, and 26 vehicles during each peak hour. This is the afternoon peak, so it's a little bit higher site traffic generation. And it shows really a small amount of increase in traffic. And there's no doubt it's a busy road, and we're not denying that at all. And then the next figure would simply be the Saturday condition. Oops, I don't show Saturday. Oh, that's fine. This is the accident experience, and quickly you'll see a lot of zeros because there's not a high or accident condition out there. The first column on the left side shows the 95 northbound, I'm impressed I can read this now, the 95 northbound ramps, and that has a total of 5 accidents for a 3-year period. Fortunately, only 4 out of the 5 were just property damage, and the collision types were spread out over different types of accidents. How I interpret that is there's no set pattern that we say, well, here's what we can do to mitigate that accident history. Next one, I'm not sure what it is, just more accident data, other intersections. Shows virtually almost no traffic, no accidents. Next one, Chris. And if I may, just if you don't mind looking my way for a moment. A couple charts that are in the report, but they didn't make it to a PowerPoint. That's the reference to the afternoon peak hour. Yeah, I will in a second. Mike. This is table 1, A1 from the appendix of the report. That's why it has an A in it. But it's just a reference to why we selected the 5 to 6 p.m. time period. By intersection, total volume, we have the 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and 5 to 6. This has the highest volume, so we analyzed this time period. If you look at the 2 to 3, which is the school dismissals, against the 5 to 6, there's anywhere from a 10 to 26% difference in volume, depending on the location, of course. So these volumes are much higher. Therefore, we analyzed this time period. Because I don't want anyone to say, well, you should have analyzed the school dismissal. Yes, sir.
This is actually, I understand that, we have a high level of traffic on Mill Plain Road, and I understand your justification and conservatism for choosing the 5 to 6 as the peak hour, since that's the highest
Total volume.
on Mill Plain Road.
Yes.
But just, my concern, which I'll be addressing, from 2 to 3, that's when the high school and
Yes.
the middle school both let out within that kind of time frame. So, although that may not be the peak hour, there's more going on that access road during that hour, I believe, than those other hours where there may be more going on Mill Plain Road.
That's correct.
Just,
But the reason why I selected this is because the total intersection is included in the analysis.
Yeah.
So while I have a higher volume on the driveway, the school driveway, for example, I may have a lower volume on Mill Plain Road. The result of the analysis, just from looking at the 2 to 3, because we did the school work recently, there's a delay coming out of the school. It's a level service F.
Yes.
And we call school traffic a 20-minute problem, to be a little sarcastic, but that's kind of what it is, and then it clears out.
Yeah.
The reason why the schools have separate dismissal times and start times in the morning is to separate the traffic. That's specifically the reason for that.
I guess my concern is less traffic and more that just make sure that the road operates safely when the school is getting out and now it's being
Yeah.
used for another purpose. I'm not challenging your numbers in terms of traffic
No.
and I understand conservatism. I just want to make sure it's a safe road for people to go into the new facility and people to leave the school.
Absolutely. And,
Can
you know, we just went to a seminar last week, all the guys in my office, and safety was number one in the whole discussion for the entire day.
Let me just throw this out there. Why do we have an entrance off of the access road anyway? Why are we trying to do that?
Bill, you want to answer that?
Probably 2 points, Mr. Chairman. Number one, we have the legal right to do so. Number two, I don't think we want to push every car through Carrollton to get to this property. I think it's a safe cut that we're making to the access road. We're perfectly willing to make it left turn only. We have no interest in pushing cars through the school
Like
campus.
that. That's good. What about making that entrance and making the entrance only? Making the exit out to Mill Plain along the, if the map was up, along the Carrollton way.
My standpoint, I'm not a big fan of the one-way. You're going to have people visiting who aren't necessarily familiar, and I think it can cause as much trouble as it might solve. You're talking relatively low numbers, peak hour, 20 or 30 cars. I think the employees are going to end up going through Carrollton. I think the visitors are going to end up going through the access road. I don't think it's going to be a significant number, and certainly Benchmark wants, their building is facing in that fashion, and they'd like to have an access road that comes to the front of their building, in particular for the Port Cochet where they have that drop-off area. But I'm perfectly willing to accept the left turn only, because we have no interest in putting cars through that campus.
Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. And we certainly don't want cars making a left-hand turn into the facility either from that direction, right? I mean, there's no reason why someone would be cutting through the parking lot of the high school in order to gain entrance into the
If we set up an internship program with the high school, we could have high school kids coming to but short of that, you're right. There's no way we want to have a... It's a pretty good trick to meander through there. I don't think anybody would try to do so.
I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head in terms of the issues that are being addressed by Commissioner Barrett's and, you know, my own experience there, and it's a busy place from 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, you know, and it's a small road. It's an access road. It's a driveway. It's not a... So, anyway, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may make one more comment about the access drive to the school drive. For emergency services and circulation to our building, I think you would prefer to have that entrance to the school driveway, to have access to both sides of the building.
For emergency, sure. It's a shorter route. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a great point to, you know,
Yeah.
in that direction.
I'd just like to go to maybe one more sheet. This is a sheet that Chairman, you and I had chatted about in general, and I didn't have it on the PowerPoint, but it's in the report. I know we
Yep.
talked about this a while ago. It's table 7 from the report, so it's in the main body of the report, and it was in there. This report's been around for quite a while. But this shows you the volume of traffic by intersection, the increase in traffic, and the percent increase. So that's very helpful to identify the amount of site traffic being added to the roadways, and it was a good point to show, and we'll be having this in every report, as I had promised some time ago.
I saw it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's fine.
It's very helpful.
Yeah. So that's a summary of a very detailed traffic report, but what the findings are, and I'll start out by saying, yes, Mill Plain Road's a busy road. I drive it every day, pretty much, and I understand what's happening out there. We're fortunately adding a very low traffic generated to this site, and while it has hours that may be off-peak to the school and off-peak to the commuter, we looked at the highest volumes as far as road conditions and area, traffic volumes on area roads. And from this, we don't recommend any mitigation. I mean, the always stop sign should remain always stop. The ramps should be the same as far as what's happening there. And we don't recommend any changes to that. We're not recommending a 2-lane off-ramp for the turnpike, although it functions that way. There's no need to change the striping. The state prefers to have 1 lane, and they do that for sightline purposes, and that's why they do that. This goes to the state for their review, and we'll have a sign-up from them. We're going to start that process after we finish this process here. And that's a somewhat detailed summary.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Christopher Yetman, Development Coordinator with Benchmark Senior Living. Chris.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Chris Yetman. I'm the Development Coordinator for Benchmark Senior Living, and I would like to take this opportunity tonight to paint a picture of the existing state of supply and demand in today's assisted living market. I usually like to start with a nice round number, 10,000. Roughly 10,000 baby boomers will turn 65 today, and 10,000 more will cross that threshold every day for the next 14 years. This has been going on since 2010. So if the baby boomers started turning 65 in 2010, then the oldest of this cohort is only 70 years old today. Right now, in over 50 Benchmark Senior Living communities, we see an average age of 87 years old. So currently, Fairfield County and the town of Fairfield have an elderly population that's growing at a much faster rate than the overall population. Between the year 2000 and today, the town of Fairfield's overall population has grown 6%. Across that same time period, the number of residents 85 and older has grown over 30%. That means the 85 and older segment has grown 5 times the rate of the overall population, and we're still years away from the baby boomers reaching the assisted living age. So now let's talk about supply. Questions we should be asking: what housing and services options are currently available? What's too much and what's not enough? Well, as a point of reference, the industry standard for measuring supply in assisted living is based on the number of assisted living units per every 100 households that are age 75 and older. Assisted living on a national level is 4.1 units per 100 households. Fairfield County has a current level of 3.7 units per 100 households. However, the town of Fairfield currently has 0 units. The primary market area for tonight's proposed project, which is a 5-mile radius or roughly 78 square miles, has 0 assisted living units. Add in tonight's proposed 88-unit Benchmark Senior Living project, and the level will only rise to 1.5 units per household. This is well below the national and county average. To conclude, the primary market area, and in particular the town of Fairfield, are significantly short on the appropriate housing supply to address the needs of its aging population. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I'd like to conclude. I've just handed out some documentation which includes the slide presentation, includes the wetlands approval, includes the zoning board of appeals variance at the very end.
Oh, it includes, I'm sorry, say that again?
Very end is the notice of filing for the variance. So this application was reviewed at a code enforcement meeting. All relevant concerns were addressed in the application. Application did require an inland wetland approval. Applicant has obtained an inland wetland approval, and I've submitted a copy. The zoning board of appeals granted a coverage variance for assisted living on this property in 2002, and a copy of that approval was submitted, and you
So-
have it in your hand.
Yeah, so, okay, so this is the coverage waiver that was referred to before.
That's
It's
correct.
actually a variance,
It's a variance.
okay?
And
So this speaks to the percentage of lot coverage, fine. And then it also says with 72 new parking spaces at the rear of the existing Carlton Chronic Convalescent Hospital.
right, this was for a 106,836 square foot proposal with 72 spaces. Our proposal is 85,000 square feet with 68 spaces, smaller.
Very good, thank you.
And it is the same tenor of use, assisted living,
Right.
memory impaired.
In other words, this variance was not specific to a particular use, this was a variance for the lot as a whole, and you still have the opportunity to avail yourself of the particulars granted in the variance.
Correct, since variances are permanent, and as you can see, it was recorded on the land records in volume 2466 at page 262.
Thank you.
Certainly. The drainage report was made available to the town engineering department. Laura Poole of the engineering department has confirmed in her email to the commission that the storm drainage proposal satisfies the engineering department's concerns. Ms. Pulley has also indicated she has reviewed the sightline profile plan and confirmed that the plan, quote, demonstrates that adequate line of sight exists for the driveway proposed. In terms of specific zoning requirements, Section 25 of your regs addresses assisted living in a specific section, 27.4.9, and in a more general section, 27.4.4. To deal with the more general section first, 27.4.1 is satisfied, I would submit, because certainly the location, type, and character of the buildings and structures are in harmony with and conform to the orderly development of the town, and do not discourage appropriate development or use of adjacent property or impair its value. This proposal is somewhat uniquely located, and that it's a significant distance away from any residential property, since it has Sturgis Field on the north, school property on the east, I-95 and state property on the south, and Carrollton and Mill Plain Road on the west. I think the design, as Jerry Frank pointed out, is certainly in keeping with the town of Fairfield vernacular. The size and scope are appropriate given the nature of the use, and the lack of any impact on residential property is self-evident. 27.4.2 is satisfied because certainly there's adequate access for fire protection. I really cannot add any more on the traffic side that Mr. Galante has not already outlined for you. Certainly there'll be minimal traffic generated by this use, particularly since our average age of the resident is 87 years old. And I think the bar chart submitted by Mr. Galante is very telling in terms of the minimal amount of traffic that the proposed use is adding. 27.4.4 is satisfied in that appropriate landscaping has been provided. The remaining section 27.4 provisions are primarily use-specific. 27.4.9 specifically addresses assisted living facilities. 27.4.9.1, from this point on, I'll call it 9.1, confirms that the minimum lot area shall be minimum floor area shall be not less than 350 square feet. Proposal satisfies that requirement. Section 9.2 describes the kind of dwelling unit. The dwelling units here satisfy those concerns. 9.3 states the occupancy shall be not more than 2 persons, at least one of whom shall be 55 years or older. That will be the case here. 9.4 says there will be no assisted living facilities on parcels in a floodplain. This is not in a floodplain and does have frontage of 50 feet or more on a major or a collector road. 9.5 states the use must be connected to public sewers and public water. It will be. 9.6 is satisfied in that the maximum allowable dwelling unit density is less than 16 units per acre, and the parcel here comprises 12.24 acres. 9.8 is satisfied since there is a van drop-off and there is compliance with ADA requirements. 9.9 is satisfied in that the building does not exceed 3 stories or 40 feet. It's 3 stories and 37.5 feet. And lastly, 9.10 is satisfied in that there is usable outdoor open space in excess of 50 square feet per unit requirement with a minimum of 2,000 square feet landscaped. That produces a requirement at 88 units of 4,400 square feet of usable outdoor space, and my review of the plans shows usable outdoor space of 8,396 square feet, or almost twice the requirement. In closing, the proposal is a permitted use in the Residence A zone by a special exception approval. As you heard from Mr. Yetman, there's clearly an unmet need for assisted living in Fairfield. This is an ideal location for assisted living, and that it does not impact any neighboring residential property. It's quite unusual given the fact that institutional uses such as this are very frequently located in residential zones. Here, there are no immediate residential neighbors. It's adjacent to I-95. It's walking distance to the railroad station. It's located directly adjacent to a skilled nursing facility, Carrollton Convalescent Home. There are different services provided, but it is the kind of use that makes sense to be adjacent to a convalescent home, which includes a facility for physical and occupational therapy and rehabilitation, as well as long-term care. I think it's inevitable that assisted living will come to Fairfield. I think it's much better to have a facility located next to a limited access highway, walking distance to the railroad station, on a public bus line, and adjacent to other institutional uses than any other possible location in town. You've got this packet of material. If there are anything in there that you have a question about, please ask me. Otherwise, I'd request that this application be approved. The experts and I would be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Fitzpatrick. Any member of the public wish to be heard on this item? Going once, twice, okay. I'll close the public hearing, and I'll adjourn the meeting.